As you can imagine, after our first real practice in a long time, the players are excited, and I'm already exhausted. So just, a lot of fun, I'm happy that we're back on the floor, so I can finally start doing what I love to do, which is be around those guys every day and watch film and figure out a way to help them get better as players, and then try to put it all together and then take on the opponents and see what happens. But that's the fun part to my job. All the other CEO stuff that's kind of crept into the business that I'm in, I still try to learn every day as I go around it and try and do that to the best of my abilities. But how about this spider? Come on. Seriously. Yeah, but it's good. And the way when men's basketball adopted the rule that was put in for women's basketball, which I thought was phenomenal, where we're allowed to start practice earlier and then we just kind of space it out. I think it's a great rule, and we go from going 2 hours a week to then this week and next week we'll go about 9 hours a week, and then the week after then we go all 20 and 6 days a week, and then that's when the freshmen get a little stressed out. But for now, it's all good.
Frank, you lost 3 seniors, but you have 3 seniors again this year. Have you talked to those 3 guys and said, I need you to be my leaders, or have they already just taken that role?
A little bit of both. You can't ask people to lead that have no interest in leading. I put something on Twitter the other day, which usually I either joke with an old friend on Twitter, or when I'm working out, I think a lot. And when thoughts come across my head that I think I need to share, and I put them out there, and it's real simple. You either lead, follow, but if you choose to do neither, don't complain. Just plain and simple. And guys have to figure out whether they want to lead or they want to follow. That's the one they got to figure out. And those 3 seniors have over the last 3 years, I think I read Sindarius say something yesterday, the day before. He said, we've actually been leading for a while. And that's the truth. Sindarius has been trying to figure out how to become a leader, just like Michael Carrera and all them did before. Like Ty Johnson tried to do the 1 year he was able to go the whole year, and no one helped them. And but they've all done that. Dwayne has become a lot more vocal, but he had to do it in his own way. He couldn't get more vocal because I told him to. And then Justin, I think Justin is mentally, he's as grounded and as comfortable in his own skin as he's been at any time since he's been here. And he's also been tremendous in helping these young guys up to this point.
In the past, you've kind of waited them in and gone offensively and then started focusing on defensively a little later into practice. With the Costa Rica trip, does it change up a little what y'all do through the first couple of weeks of practice?
No, we're going to do the same stuff. And what Matt and Perry and Bruce did with Costa Rica is they actually spent practice time on things, a couple of different little concepts offensively, because we played with a shorter shot clock, so you had to be ready to shoot a little faster. And then defensively, they spent a lot of time practicing things that I usually don't spend a lot of time on. But no, the way we're trying to put it together is the same. We gave guys time off when they got back on campus. Now we're pretty much back to our normal schedule. A lot of introduction of offensive concepts and angles and screens and things of that nature this week and next week. And then on the 17th, if I'm not mistaken, that's a Monday, then we start implementing our defensive concepts.
Frank, you and I talked about it in the offseason, about the depth in the backcourt. Could be the deepest in the SEC, but are you comfortable with your front court?
I better be. I think they're going to be fine. You know, we just, you know, they're young. They're going to be nervous. I mean, it is what it is. And that's the great thing about having older guys around that can help those guys deal with those moments. I mean, you know, as good a player as P.J. Dozier is and was last year for us, he was nervous sometimes. Having a Sindarius around that can help him deal with those moments, that's what it's about. And that's, you know, I think those young guys are all going to be extremely valuable to us. If you ask me about one guy that is standing out right now, none of them are, because they're all kind of in the same place in the learning curve. They all bring something positive to the team, which is so important. You know, I think Chris Silva is going to take a huge step forward. His understanding of what we're trying to do and who he is as a player within our structure, he's in a much better place from day one compared to day one last year. You know, and he's been extremely helpful to those other big young kids. But I think they're all, it's going to be like, you know, one of those deals. It's going to be kind of by committee. And they're all going to play. And who plays more and all that will determine on maturity. It'll determine in the ability to retain information, to manage emotions, things of that nature. You know, that if you do all those things, it minimizes mistakes. And when you minimize mistakes, you give yourself a chance to win. So that's what we got to figure out with those guys.
Is this team going to look different given all the experience you have in the backcourt?
Probably early in the year, we have to depend on our guards a lot more. Maybe for some post-ups. We got big, strong guards, too. So just like Michael last year, we'd post up Michael a lot, especially when he was at the 3. I think we can do that with PJ and Sindarius. You know, they're big, strong guards. We've got more guards, too. So you can, you know, PJ and Sin pretty much have had to play a lot of point guard for us. We've got some other guys there, and as they continue to grow and get better, then you can play PJ and Sin off the ball a little bit, and I think both of them would be a nightmare trying to be defended by other guards at that 8-9 foot range. So, you know, so those are all things that we, as a staff, we've talked about, and we're going to try and implement with our team. But yeah, early in the year, I think you'll see us have to be a little more dependent on our guards than the balance that I'm always looking for. But as the year progresses, the goal is to have balance by the end of the year.
Frank, what's PJ's comfort level so far this year? You see him taking that step forward, and you think he'll get out of that early foul trouble, some of those early foul trouble problems he had?
Shoot, I hope so. He's in a much better place. He's in a much better place. It's you guys heard me say this last year at the end of the year, and you probably thought I was just trying to protect the kid. I was just trying to tell you the truth. It was like at the end there was like a sense of relief when it ended. Like, you know, I felt for him. He was like tired of treading water in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and had not seen land in like 6 weeks, and it gave him a chance to kind of just take a step back, catch his breath, rest for a minute, and then take on the offseason. And he's been great. I think he's going to have a real good year. I really do. He's an unbelievable human being. He's such a good player, but who he is as a player gets dwarfed because he's so good as a human being that sometimes you don't realize just how good a player he is. But he's got star written all over him, and you know, I've got to help him. I don't think I helped him as much as I needed to last year. But that's the part. See, that's, you know, Pete. That's the part that you don't really know a kid until you kind of live with him and you're in the fire with him. I started to really understand PJ when we were in the fire together halfway through the year last year. And now I should, shame on me if I don't, do a better job with him because I understand them better now. But I really think he's much stronger. His body, he's a lot more comfortable with his body. We got to remember now, when he took the court here for us, it was less than a year before. Less than a year earlier, he still could not play because of an ACL surgery. So he was still trying to refine his body and his comfort level with his body. So, but he's a heck of a teammate. He's a heck of a player. I'm not into predicting stuff, because then if he only scores 10 points the first game, then everyone's going to go out there and say, oh, I knew he was no good, da, 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 da. It's just the biggest bunch of crock I've ever heard. I really think he's going to have a real good year for us. That's my gut feel because of his preparation going into the season.
Frank, Dwayne really flourished as a sixth man last year, won the SEC award and all. With you having to depend on the guards this year, have you already decided that he moves back into the lineup, or is that way too early to say?
Last year was last year, this year's this year. We got to practice as a team. We got to get a little deeper into the year so I can have better feel for the other guys on the team and what I think needs to take place for us to become the best team that we can be. The great thing is when you have guys like Dwayne and PJ and Sin and Justin, you can have those kind of conversations when the time requires. Every year's different. Whatever worked last year doesn't mean it's going to work this year. Whatever fit last year's team doesn't necessarily fit the jigsaw puzzle we're going to try and put together this year. When the time comes, we'll have conversations to try and figure out what's best for this year's team.
Staying with Dwayne, Dwayne was up there a little minute ago talking about how he feels like his in-between games grown the most over the last little bit. How do you think he's evolved since his time on campus?
Dwayne has tremendous pride. Dwayne wants to be the best. He's driven to get better every single day. That stubbornness, which, by the way, I kind of suffer from the same problems as him. Sometimes, as a player, makes him get into trouble because he tries to do more than maybe he should be trying to do. I think Dwayne, through experience, has learned that to be a real good player doesn't mean you have to do more. It means you have to be real good at what you're good at. And I think that's where he's grown the most, is his understanding of how we play, his understanding of what he's real good at, and just kind of peace of mind that let me do these things that I'm real good at, and let's ride with that and see where it takes us. And I think that's why you saw him kind of take a big step forward last year. He had played real well for us in the past, and when you think about, as a freshman, if you remember, he said he picked here because we're the one school that did not want him to play the point. Well, he ended up playing the point basically his whole freshman year. And then last year, because of the necessities that I felt was needed for that team, I asked him to come off the bench. Well, he went out and became the sixth man of the year in the league. Dwayne's is such a unselfish human being. He's so giving. He's so willing to do whatever that's asked of him. It makes him special. And then once you give him that parameter, he wants to be the best at that he can be. And and he's grown in his willingness to just to just accept who he is and become that best version of Dwayne Notice that he can possibly be. He's tremendous. He's fun to be around.
Frank, when I asked the guys about teams like Michigan and Syracuse, they said it's like a dream to play schools like that when you're a kid, and playing in Madison Square Garden. Not a lot of people get that opportunity. How does playing blue bloods like that in the non-conference part of the schedule help this team?
Well, I hope they don't react like I did the first time I played against the Blue Bloods in college basketball. I remember coming out and standing on the sideline, looking down the bench and saying, how the heck am I on the sideline against Mike Krzyzewski or Jim Boeheim or who? Take your pick. I'd be over there saying, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And so I hope they don't react like that. But that's what it's about, you know. But then again, you know, we play Kentucky every year. You know, it's you know, you play SEC games, and I understand that in the opinions of many that write and report on college basketball, the opinion that the SEC is inferior is out there. I get it. I hear people say that all the time. It's unfortunate. But reality is, when you're one of the people that has to go in there and deal with it, you realize that it's as good as any other league or teams around the country. And, you know, but it's our jobs to go into those games against the so-called blue bloods of college basketball, so we can kind of make that whole theory that's out there that what we do in the SEC is inferior to some of these other conferences. That's our opportunity to go in there and kind of change the rhetoric, because, you know, it is kind of boring and old, to be honest with you. But it's a great change, you know, great. It's going to be great. You know, we recruit New York, so we're up there all the time. You guys heard me say that a long time ago. So I'm going to try and schedule games there as often as we can. We got a huge Gamecock club up there. And anytime you play Syracuse in the state of New York, it's a home game for Syracuse. So it's going to be an unbelievable challenge for our team. You know, and then Beeline and I have become friends over the years. So fortunate that the dates worked, that we can play a game like that. I've never coached a game at a Big 12 arena, Big 12, Big 10 arena. So that's going to be fun. You know, that you know, going up there and once again, you're talking about quality teams. You're talking about teams that are good. They expect to win. They know how to win. So our teams get better because of those things.
Frank, I'm sure you've kept up with what Colin Kaepernick is doing, but would you ever discipline a player for not standing for the national anthem?
Why didn't you ask me that first? We'd have gotten rid of that moment, you know? Listen, I was out of the country when that took place, okay? And when I found out what he did, I actually was proud that an athlete didn't want to be vanilla and consumed with his own paycheck, that he wouldn't be willing to take a stance on what he thought was right and wrong. I applaud celebrities that are willing to do things to bring attention to what's wrong or to what's right. I don't like celebrities that like to go vanilla on the things that really matter. Because if they hide from taking stances, then that means they're only concerned about their status, their paycheck, and their future, not impacting the ones that don't have the stage that they're on. The problem that we have is when we get educated through social media, you don't learn reality. You learn who uses social media for a platform. Most of the people that are on social media using it for a platform are looking for attention. So they do outlandish things to create attention, because life has not given them a platform to be visible or be followed by others. Therefore, when celebrities are willing to take a stance, I applaud it. I think more guys should do that. It saddens me when people are so consumed with the way they're perceived, rather than doing what's right to help the next one that comes from their background or their experiences or their life. Because our duty is, and it will always be, to make life better for the next person, not just for us. But when you're willing to take a stance of that nature, then you better be prepared to show that you've been engaged in making things better, that there's some form of, I'm giving you a long-winded answer so you hear why I'm giving you this answer, which is what you asked me pertaining to our players, why I'm giving you all this. But when you're willing to take a stance to express what you think is wrong, make sure that you're educated on what you're trying to express. Don't give what's popular on Twitter, because then that takes the moment, the power of the moment away. Example, if you're going to talk the words oppression, if that's the avenue, and I believe that's the word he used the day he took that stance, don't talk about oppression and celebrate Fidel Castro, because no one has oppressed more people and killed more black people in the history of the world than Fidel Castro. So when he decided to take that moment, he didn't represent himself the right way. So that's why everyone started talking about the military and everything else, because the message that he tried to portray was not portrayed in a proper manner in that moment. If it would, if he would have been standing up there in a coat and tie, or a pair of slacks and a collared shirt, and he would have said police brutality or social injustice, then that would have been the conversation, rather than the military and everything else that it took. The reason I say all this to you is because if one of our players felt adamantly about things like that, I would understand. But in my conversations with them, preparing them for that moment in their life, I think we need to be united in what we do. I think we need to be united. I also put this on Twitter. You don't beat hate with hate. You beat hate through education and love. You drown it with those words. You drown it with those actions. And what I've told our players is real simple. I said, be an agent of action. Let's not talk about it. A lot of people talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? If there's something that you don't like, you have a platform. People will listen to you. Just make sure you're prepared for that powerful moment to express what you don't like the right way. So if they choose to not support the national anthem, that'll be disappointing for me, but it's their right. Doesn't mean I have to agree with them. It is their right, and they have anyone that questions that is out of their minds. That's why this is the greatest country in the whole world. My thing, and someone explained this to me last week with the passing of Jose Fernandez, because that's been like an unbelievable celebration of his short life in Miami. How can somebody who wasn't born here, don't look American, don't speak English, just celebrate that flag in this country the way he did? But yet others don't kind of embrace it, And I've had some conversations with people that advise me, that help educate me, that kind of made me understand there's a little difference. Somebody that kind of has roots here in this country and was oppressed here back in 1960 or 1950, compared to somebody who got away from the people that oppressed them. So in essence, it'd be hard for me to go back to Cuba, even if it was a democracy, if Castro was still in charge, and be happy to live in that democracy. You comprehend what I'm saying? And that kind of said, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. So we have to communicate. We have to educate. The problem we have in our country right now is that most people that struggle, I used to be there. You learn through Twitter, Facebook, social media. The people that use those places as platforms are not prepared to really understand what the problems are. Now, the people that do understand what the problems are, too many times don't have the courage Kaepernick had to take a stance to bring attention to it. My whole thing is, when you're going to do that, don't be a divider, be a uniter. And have a plan, have a mission, have an understanding of what the problems are that you really want to stand up for, or sit down for in his case. Because if you don't, that powerful moment loses its bang. All of a sudden, that powerful moment goes away. So whatever the process that was being held, like I told our players, I asked our players this question that next day when I got back in the country. I said, who in this room, this country has held who back how? Nobody raised their hands. I said, so how can you tell me this country holds you back and no one's ever held you back? And so that's what I'm saying. But it's popular on Twitter to say, oh, this country holds you back. So then everybody that follows Twitter, thinks that whatever's reported on Twitter by people that we don't know is the truth. But in real life, when you communicate with the people that lived it, go through it, like I told our players, this country doesn't hold you back. Some of us have more obstacles in front of us than others, but nobody's grabbing us from behind. Some of us have to learn how to clear more hurdles to get where we want to go than others. Others don't have hurdles. Some of us have more. Some people run a 100-meter dash. Some people run a 100-meter hurdle race. And that's the difference here in this country. Now, what we have to figure out a way is how to unite, because it's what makes us great, that we all get a platform to speak, express ourselves, to move forward. If we have the courage to get over the hurdles, this country opens its doors to you. And that's the deal. What do we do in our platform, in our moment, that if we want to take notice on something, we take the hurdles out of the way so the next person can get to the finish line a little easier. I told you we should have done that first.
I get the lucky next one. With DeMarcus Blanton, I know it's been a long road back with that injury. Where is he at as he enters this year?
He's in a much better, he's having to redefine who he is as a player. And that's what he struggled with all of last year. He could never get any confidence in himself because who he had to be was completely different as to who he had always been. He's in a much better place now. He's gone from high-level athlete. His second jump was better than most people's first jump. His ability to run, that's not there anymore. And will it ever come back? I don't know. But right now, this moment, he just doesn't have that athleticism. He's a wonderful kid. He's tough as nails. Anyone that's still trying to play basketball at the high level after his injury, anyone that ever questions who he is as a human being or his courage or his toughness needs to kind of go look in a mirror, to figure out where those qualities really are lacking at. But he's in a much better place. He's learning how to become more of a shooter, position rebounder and defender than he used to be. He used to be more of a shot blocker, runner, jumper, dunker. Now he's trying to, and he's put his arms around that, and he's accepted that. Doesn't mean he doesn't try to jump and dunk and all that stuff, but it's not what he does anymore. And maybe by the next, you got to remember, he's still a sophomore. Maybe by the next year and a half or so, maybe some of those things start coming back as he continues to gain more confidence in his body. But he's wonderful. He's great to have around. Has bought into everything that we're about here, has put his own flavor, which is the other thing. Once you buy in, then the people that are already there, then they accept your flavor. The problem is when people walk in from day one and they want to tell people that have already been doing it how to do things, then no one listens to what you're saying. He came in, he bought into what we're selling, and he committed to what we're selling and how we do it. And now that he's done it the right way, now he's allowed his flavor to jump in there. So everyone's embraced his flavor and his whole thing. Like with him, something that was a joke, and now it's like awesome. Like I'm showing him pictures of me back in 1993, because we call him Schmedium, because he's the originator of the small medium T-shirt. And now I'm showing pictures of me in 1993 when I used to wear Schmediums, and he thinks it's awesome. So it's pretty neat. He's a wonderful kid, and he's going to help us this year.
Franco, we saw Justin's foot in the boot, but just seems very minor. Are there any more injuries that you expect to come up in this first month?
The only one that matters is my headaches, and they're not in yet. So I'm still sleeping good, and Justin's probably out for about another week or so. CeeDee's wrist, I don't know when that's going to heal. I don't know the name of the bone that's inside the wrist, but it's a bone that has very little blood flow to it, so the healing process to that takes forever. But outside of that, everyone else should be okay.
Coach Senderi said he believes this team this team has the roster to get to the NCAA tournament. Given that you guys did really well last year, what do you think is what's it going to take to get over the hump this year and get to the tournament, but also make a deep run?
Just patience. That's the most important word, because the young guys have to grow. They have to learn. But Sin also understands. When he came in as a freshman, he thought that this thing was going to be easy. And halfway through his freshman year, he realized, like, whoa, this is a little bit harder than anyone ever told me about. And now, as a senior, he understands. He didn't say that his sophomore year. Last year, if you go back to his preseason quotes, he probably said that was the goal. Now he knows whether the guys on the team are good enough or not good enough, and he's mature enough and understanding enough to be able to express it to whether you have a chance to win games or not. And I totally agree with him. I think our team, that's why I said patience, as we navigate through the year, we can't, which I'm not big on anyway, overreact to a loss or a win, a good day or a bad day, and allow it to impact the next day in a negative way, which when you get too positive or too unrealistic, then that can be a negative reaction to good things. And just kind of take on the days as they come along. But patience, they're going to work, they're going to compete, they care, they're fun to be around. I'm not worried about those things. We need to stay healthy. Not that, to follow up on Dave's question, we need to stay healthy. We can't afford to have a rash of injuries because, unfortunately, we got some inexperience there. So if an inexperienced guy gets hurt, he doesn't get the repetitions. Without the repetitions, he can't get better by the end of the year. If the old guys get hurt, then what happens is now you're going to depend on some inexperienced guys, which means there's bumps in the road earlier in the season, which means you don't get to move forward and maybe even win the games that you think you should win. And now you're playing catch up at the end of the year. So you got to stay away from the injury bug. It's a little complicated that way. But patience, I think, is the one thing that this team has to show. There's a confidence level about the older guys that I like a lot, but there's also a realistic approach to what they do every day. And they stay humble and they stay committed to the work, and they keep the young guys on edge. It's 4 years ago I had, you probably guys that were there remember the zombie press conference. That's no longer the case. Those guys are really, really engaged with what we do every single day and help each other. And they're not happy with each other not everybody, when one guy has a bad day. They're not happy with it. And there's a commitment to helping one another. That's a whole lot of fun to be around.
Thanks, guys.
I'll see you guys in about 2 months.